Hello my friends and welcome. We have numerous of the frontline updates today, and let's go to the good news for Ukraine at first. It seems like Ukraine finally was able to repel the Russian attack in Stepove, and our guys went on a counterattack, taking this part of the ground. There is not yet update from the deep state military map source, but we have the other sources. So here we go with the military map. This part of the ground was taken by Ukrainian forces back, liberated. It is very important because this area might have been used by Russia to create the bridgehead to advance forward, because here you can see the forest lines, 3 of them in the form of the H layer, and here we go with the railroad. Ukraine not only has the success in this place but also in Stepove, taking some of the small ground back. You can see that before Russia took this part of Stepove village under control, and this is the gray zone where the active fighting is ongoing. The good news is that we see more of the blue fire from the Ukrainian side rather than the Russian side. And here again the Russian vehicles are burning. Ukraine is using the tanks and infantry forces, also surveillance, drones, basically everything to stop Russians, and it was very effective. Here's the 3D map of the place, Stepove village. The latest update hasn't arrived yet to this place, so Ukraine liberated this part and also took this part in control. This is somewhere the gray zone, and the Russian positions are in this forest, very close to the railroad. Hopefully Ukraine would have enough forces to repel Russians behind the railroad towards Avdiivka. If our guys cross the railroad, because after it the ground goes a little bit lower to this valley, to this lake, here's the ground on the lower level, much lower than over here. That might potentially help Ukraine in its advancement. Just to cross-check with yesterday's update, it was like that yesterday, and today Ukraine took this sort of the ground somewhere over here, and this small piece pushing the Russian army further. But yesterday the Russian counterattack vector was absent, so today they launched their small counterattack, but all of their forces were repelled. It seems like Russia doesn't care about the cost and sent more and more reinforcements to Stepove. Guys, there's the real actual fight published in Stepove. Lots of the forces in use. Ukraine even used helicopters, so everything is happening over here. Unfortunately, I'm unable to share this kind of the videos on this platform, so to watch it, please go to my Telegram channel. It's available in the video description just below, or you may just scan the QR code available on the screen. I use Telegram as my alternate platform if something goes wrong with my main resource on YouTube. Plus, I constantly publish my posts on that platform, so to be updated, go to my Telegram. The Russian Volunteer Corps fights now in Avdiivka. This corps consists of the Russian volunteers who fight against the Putin's regime and the Russian army. This time in Avdiivka they're quite successful. They advanced during the night time using Bradleys and infantry forces, and as you can see over here, it's the railroad. Probably they fight near to the industrial area where the railroad also nearby. But this Bradley was spotted by the Russian drone not far away from Stepove, and they even zoomed out at some point. But this Bradley was spotted not far away from the Stepove village, also the Avdiivka region. Also today Russia advanced southbound from this lake, from this hill I would say, and they continue to use aviation bombs to target the industrial part of Avdiivka. If we check out the latest deep state military update in this sector, you might see this advancement. So this is the hill, and Russia advances from it, and today unfortunately they took this part of the forest line, which they might potentially use as their defense line. If you want to see it on the 3D map, Russia has the advancement in this area over here and also over here, which is not good if we speak about the defense of the industrial power plant in Avdiivka. The main task for Ukraine is to secure this supply road. Everybody understands that it's the main target for the Russian army. They are trying to achieve their goal, but the factory is defending the area, so it's good. If we generally see the Avdiivka front lines, you might see the clarification of the front lines, so we have the latest update with the current information about this place. So it's not the Russian advancement at some points, we just obtained the clear confirmation. The only Russian advancement happened over here and over here in Avdiivka, but it is not that significant. The more significant advancement Russia has near to the Bakhmut city. Today they moved a little in Hromove, so it was yesterday and it is today. Definitely they took this forest line under control, and their goal, I think, is to take this vector towards the road over here and then advance on the upper side. Let me show you on the 3D map, because here the elevation is really different. So this is the Bakhmut place, a very clear and understandable map showing the exact position of the city, districts, etc. I like it a lot. And this is Hromove. The fight is ongoing for this village. As you can see, all of it is in the gray zone. We don't have the latest update over here, but Russia advanced using the higher ground. So as you can see, Hromove, because it's in the lake, it's on a much lower ground compared to the upper part over here. And Russia used the upper part for the advancement. So here is the Russian assault vector. They want to reach the road nearby over here and to go over here to the nearby village. By doing so, they basically cut all of the Ukrainian forces in this particular place. Well, our guys may still hide behind the hill over here. I think it's the racetrack for some sort of the dirt bikes, so it might take some time and efforts for the Russian army to advance in this area. Hopefully Ukraine will secure this place, but unfortunately, as you probably know, we are in lack of the resources, mainly because of the political issues in our allied countries. The update that worries me a little also comes from the Bakhmut area. Our enemy advances towards Klishchiivka, and today they were able to cross this railroad over here. So it was yesterday, and unfortunately it is today they reached this road, and they continue to advance towards Klishchiivka, the village. The fight for this village was really hard, and I hope Ukraine will continue to control this village. Again, if we go to the 3D map, Bakhmut city on the south, there is Klishchiivka, and Russian forces continue their advancements. So yes, this is the railroad over here, and they already controlling all of this part, and they've took control over this field road too. Speaking about the terrain, as you can see, they're advancing in the valley. Yes, they have also the advancement vector over here, but mainly they go through the valley to Klishchiivka. Okay guys, it's unbelievable story, but we have it from the Russian official sources. Probably you remember the Russian general Vladimir Zavodsky, who recently lost his life in Ukraine. Now we have the details how he managed to do so. So, the Russian army trophied or captured the Ukrainian vehicle. They did not specify the type of the vehicle or the name of it. The Russian general Zavodsky went on the Russian positions and he saw the vehicle himself. The vehicle was in a good condition, so he decided to ride it, to have some joy. I believe that the vehicle was the Western made, so the general was curious to test it. But there was the light problem for General Zavodsky. He didn't inform the other Russian soldiers from the other positions that he would just drive the Ukrainian vehicle somewhere in the fields. So the Russian soldiers from different positions saw the Ukrainian vehicle just driving around the fields on the Russian-controlled territory. They were unaware that there was the Russian general inside, and they opened the fire directly on that vehicle. However, they missed the vehicle but forced the general to leave the positions of the safe fields. and General went straight to the minefield, exploding with the vehicle itself. Nice, right? It says in the comments. I would agree with that. The Russian oil depot was targeted in Luhansk. They use it for their army vehicles. Obviously, Ukraine is constantly using the drones to operate far behind the front lines, targeting the very important Russian supplies and command centers. The situation in the trenches, at some point it's freezing now, so the dirt just froze, and our guys have to use axes to dig into the ground. And at other positions, for example on the south, it's very dirty. Our guys completely covered with dirt. It's basically everywhere. This is how the weaponry looks after the guys returned from the first line or zero line. More drone images were published today. For example, this is the Russian artillery system Pion, and many more stuff that was targeted. Also, the Russian air defense system Osa was kaboomed. This is clearly the southern part of Ukraine, probably near to the Krinky village. I may say it almost 100% because of the ground and the trees, which you may find close to the Dnieper River. I'm from Kiev Oblast, and we have almost the same areas. What also worries me that Russia started the advancement from Verbovo village, so before Ukraine took control over this territory, it was a successful counterattack, and it seems like Russia was able to return back some of the territories. It is not the front line update, definitely Russia went on the counterattack over here. So again, the south front lines, you may see Verbovo, and Russia advances in this place. There is no specific elevation difference. Well, there is about just a little one. The Verbovo itself is a little bit on the lower position compared to this area, but Russia advances towards this place. It's the first time I see the Russian counterattack when Russia was able to take the ground on the south. Before, Ukraine only was the advancing side, taking the part of the land over here. Well, you know, after all, President Zelensky and many of the Ukrainian officials plus military admitted the mistake even starting this way of the counterattack. They were almost sure that Russians would leave their positions after they see the advancing Ukrainian forces. Yes, there could have been some fight, they thought, but not that hard. Also, the Russian defense lines were really robust, and they are really hard to penetrate. The article is from the Washington Post. They say why the counteroffensive of Ukraine went not according to plan. By the way, officially it's still ongoing. So the strategy for Ukraine was to attack the Russian forces and to penetrate the main Russian defense in just 4 days. The objective was to go to Tokmak and Melitopol. So this is Robotyne, and this is the current front lines, somewhere like that. All of this area is controlled by the Russian army. But Russia was ready for it. It is impossible to advance that fast through the minefields and across the trenches. On the 4th day of the counteroffensive, Ukraine was somewhere over here, and we were shocked seeing many of the Leopards and Bradleys burning even behind the front line. So Russia was really expecting this counterattack, or it's better to say the attack in this case. So obviously the morale of the Ukrainian army dropped. Well, the losses in vehicles, I would say, incomparable to the losses of the Ukrainian soldiers, the precious lives of our guys, but it showed that planning was done poorly. Honestly, I think you remember those images. On the front part there were 4 of the demining Leopard vehicles, and all of them were destroyed or severely damaged. It means that Ukrainian Army Command was unaware about the Russian possible counteractions and sent the armored vehicles without the backup. If you have such losses during the daytime, it means that the planning was done poorly. And I personally think that our partners should have influenced the decision making in Ukrainian army more, because the main idea for our allies, for United States Army Command and Britain Army Command, was to create a single vector and concentrate all of the resources to penetrate the Russian defense lines at the single place. But the Ukrainian Army Command decided to perform 3 of the attack vectors, one in Bakhmut, one on the south of Donetsk Oblast, and the one that we know already near to Oriheve. But the problem for Ukraine was that in any of that place, Russia had the advantage in infantry, in artillery, basically in everything. Guys, I'm not really a military expert, but I read lots of the information on the internet from the military experts too. And they say that the liberation of Bakhmut was not really the good idea because Russia has lots of the defense lines. So yes, it could have been the tactical success of Ukraine to encircle the Bakhmut with the Russian group, but potentially it could have been just the tactical advantage. And as we see it nowadays, Ukraine was not capable to make it happen. Now Russia has their attack in Bakhmut, as I showed to you, in Hromove and to Klishchiivka, unfortunately. Plus they have the direct support from the Luhansk Oblast. So from the strategic perspective, obviously it is better to concentrate the main vector at the single place, trying to cut the Russian army in several pieces, at least in two. And our military just split the vector. We should have concentrated everything over here. I was really surprised seeing Bradleys and even Leopards in the Bakhmut direction. The city was taken by Wagner or by the Russian forces, you may call them. It would have been better just to advance at the different place. On my personal opinion, the advancement in attempt to encircle the Bakhmut city was more politically motivated because, again, with the resources available, there is no strategic perspective in this advancement if we look in the long-term perspective. After the General Commander Zaluzhny saw what is happening on the south, he ordered to stop the counteroffensive in the way it was planned. Ukraine started to use the different tactics, which actually saved lots of the lives of the Ukrainian soldiers, but at the same time the advancement of Ukrainian army was really slow. Ukraine started to use the small groups of the infantry with the backup of maximum 2 of the armored vehicles or tanks. The advancement was mostly happening during the night time, so Ukraine was using the advantage in the modern day equipment, the night vision, thermal cameras, and that's how Ukraine was able to penetrate the first 2 lines of the Russian defense. But after Russia sent enormous reinforcements to the area, their paratroopers, you may see that the advancement of Ukrainian army mostly stopped. But at the beginning, the Western generals advised the massive assault in one direction. So probably if Ukraine had used all of the reinforcements with that massive assault strategy, there would have been some turned success. But you know, it's history. We have what we have. Clearly underestimated our enemy. Luckily, Zaluzhny was capable to recognize the false decision at the proper time and was able to stop the main wave of the Ukrainian counteroffensive. Otherwise, we would have lost our army on the south. The general plan of the assault was to reach the Azov Sea in a couple of months, but already half of the year passed since the Ukrainian counteroffensive, and Ukraine moved by 14 or 15 kilometers. In his recent interview, President Zelensky admitted that definitely it was the mistake of Ukrainian army to start this kind of the counterattack on prepared Russian positions. Unfortunately, it also triggered the chain reactions. Many of the Western politicians referred to the Ukrainian failed counterattack and saying that Ukraine is using the resources not properly, so why they should give those to Ukraine. But it's the false thinking. We are not gods and we are unable to be prepared for everything, and we make mistakes. Especially with a strong enemy as Russia. They have their intelligence, so for sure they knew the day and the time and the place where Ukraine starts the counterattack. They have lots of the spies in Ukrainian command everywhere basically, also in the United States and many other countries. I think that the main mistake over here was not the planning itself, but the PR campaign connected to the Ukrainian counteroffensive. Remember, like half a year, Ukrainian officials, Western officials were calling, okay, Ukraine is up to start the counteroffensive. Ukraine will go on counteroffensive. It was well advertised as some imminent success, and I was also sure about the success, and I was speaking about it on my channel. Actually, we also may admit it that we were wrong about this counteroffensive perspective. It was like Ukraine built the army of the Star Destroyers and the Russia is doomed, but it's not like that, unfortunately. Experts say it about the weak Russian defense lines, but reality, as you can see, is different. But you see that President Zelensky after all recognized his mistake. He has the courage to admit it. For politicians, it's very rare. Usually they always right, always. So what are the perspectives for the Ukrainian counteroffensive? I don't think that with the current resources or with the resources that are planned for Ukraine the next year, the Ukrainian army will be able to gain the success on the very defended part of the southern Ukraine. The military command understands that. That is why we have different vectors of assault, for example, in Kherson Oblast across the Dnieper River. But for that we need the military support, and we need it urgently. Jake Sullivan today says that the finances for Ukraine has not been yet approved. That is why the supplyment of the weaponry might stop soon, because Pentagon is running out of the funds to support Ukraine. Democrats in Senate would like to vote for the military support of Ukraine just right now, but Republicans want to connect the support for Ukraine with migration stuff in the United States. They say that they need to secure the borders first, and only after it help the other countries. I would honestly call it the political manipulation in Senate, because two of those issues are not interconnected, and by saying that Republicans are willing to support Ukraine if they admit that they have enough funds to help Ukraine, but they want to solve their own political issues. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be done anything in the migration crisis in the United States, because there are many of the illegal immigrants who commit the crimes. It's very terrible, it's very bad. But what Ukraine has to do with that? I mean, after all, the United States is not obligated to support Ukraine, but I think it's the interest of the United States for Ukraine to continue the fight and, after all, win in this war. Plus, we got rid of our nukes in 90s, mainly because the United States wanted us to do so. Not only we got rid of the nukes, but also we got rid of the many of the artillery shells, rockets and other stuff. Sometimes I read the comments that Ukraine should have produced the artillery shells. Well, according to the agreements with the United States, personally, Ukraine got rid of hundreds of thousands of the Soviet-produced ammunition, including artillery shells. Moreover, the deal was ongoing after the Russian intervention in Crimea after 2014. Later on in 2015, our generals protested because they had to waste the useful munition, so Ukraine stopped that agreement. And now we need munition. We are very dependent on our allies on the military support. The other state representative confirmed that the United States are running out of the funds for 2023 to support Ukraine military. At the same time, the situation in Ukraine is hard, difficult. So the White House, the Department of State, Pentagon, all of them are screaming to give the military support for Ukraine. But it seems like politicians live in their parallel reality. Sorry, my friends, this is in Russian, but I'll translate it for you. It is the Putin speech from today. If Latvia continue their attitude towards their population that wants to live there, soon the Latvian government will have their response. He means the attitude towards the Russian speakers or the Russian citizens in Latvia, because Latvia has the regulations to pass the language test for the permanent residentship, as well as many of the European countries, and not only. So it's normal practice after all, but Putin is using this stuff to threaten Latvian government and Latvia itself. So after Ukraine, do you think Putin stopped? Alright, we have the good news for the Ukrainian military. Ukraine started their own production of the self-propelled artillery system Bogdana. What is interesting that Ukraine has the capability to produce 6 of the units each month. For Ukraine, this number is really big. Okay, this one I don't really like. It seems like there is definitely the conflict between Zaluzhny and Zelensky. Guys, I say it like it is on my channel because I want to speak truth. It's my goal. The truth is the weaponry. So the guys from the Ukrainian Truth, it's the publication which gives mostly the truthful information about everything. They've made the articles about the ex-defense minister and his corruption schemes. Because of those guys, many people understood about what is really happening in Ukraine with corruption. So they say that Zelensky tries to command with generals directly bypassing Zaluzhny. In their article, they say that at some point it is good because it shortened the link between the main command, the politician command of Ukraine, and direct generals responsible for the parts of the front lines. But at the same time, eliminating the general commander from the scheme lowers the competence of the Ukrainian Army Command in general. The commander Zaluzhny may not know many of the things that will just go behind his back. So they have the big article about it, saying more information. They have the sources in the Ukrainian military which confirms the information about the situation in the military command of Ukraine. It is actually, I would say, not the good scenario for Ukraine in this critical condition with the military support. About the ammunition, the Ukrainian General Command says that Ukraine needs 17 million artillery shells to win this war. That would cost around $400 billion. The number is really huge, but if we don't want to waste our soldiers, we need more artillery. The mid-wave tactics for Ukraine will not work because we don't have that number of the population compared to Russia, and also the attitude towards the person, towards individual, towards the human life for Ukraine is different and should be different. Doesn't matter how many people live in the country. Ben Hodges, the ex-commander of the United States Army in Europe, says that there could be the disappointment that the Western countries do not supply Ukraine as before, but what Ukraine did since 2014 to increase their own military production. Well, probably Ben Hodges just unaware that we had the agreement with the United States for wasting our ammunition, and it was valid, as I said to you, after 2014, but Ukraine was able to stop that at least. The member of parliament Bezuglia doesn't stop. She wants Zaluzhny to be dismissed. It could be one more sign of the confrontation between President's office and the Ukrainian General Commander Zaluzhny. So she says again that we should vote for the other general commander of the Ukrainian army. Definitely there are just two explanations. The first one, she's just sick and nuts. The second one, she just says what President's office would like to say but hesitates to say it openly. Why it could be like that? Because she is in the president's party. Also news from the German concern Rheinmetall. They have the agreement to produce artillery shells for Ukraine. The cost of the deal is 142 million euros, and Ukraine will have thousands of shells. Mostly we're speaking about 155mm shell, which have the longest range and cause the most devastation to the enemy. According to the British intelligence, Russia lost already 320,000 soldiers in the war in Ukraine. Not all of them are KIA, many were wounded. At the same time, the British intelligence says that the real number is unknown. Even for Russia, it's hard really to calculate, but general figures are like that. The statistics is very close to the Ukrainian one. The ex-Ukrainian president Poroshenko was halted from leaving Ukraine. He intended to go to Hungary to speak with Orban about something. The Ukrainian Internal Security Office published the information that Poroshenko was working in the interests of the Russian Federation. Well, honestly, I don't believe it. My friends, don't forget to press the like to this video. Definitely it helps me a lot. Also, if you want to support my job, you may find some of the links in the video description just below. Special thanks for my Patreon supporters and the sponsors of my YouTube channel. Guys, thank you so much. You're awesome. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.